It's Friday, January 31. In the headlines, Kingston Freeport terminal workers stage sick-out over proposed salary increase. In business news, government to raise money to cover expenses. Regionally, St. Lucia leads a climate justice fight at International Court of Justice. And in sports, Reggae Boyz set to clash against Trinidad and Tobago. This is the weekend news on PBC Jamaica. I'm Simone Absalom Gale. General Secretary of the Trade Union Congress, Barry Dawes, says he will be addressing the grievances of Kingston Freeport terminal workers so as to pave a way forward. Scores of Kingston Freeport terminal workers stayed off the job on Thursday to press for better salaries. Thursday's sick-out stemmed from talks reportedly held Wednesday between the Trade Union Congress and the company's management. At the center of the workers' contention is a proposed salary increase arising from a job evaluation, which they say unfairly excludes some of their colleagues. They have rejected the proposal as, quote, disappointing, end quote, and, quote, disrespectful, end quote. In the meantime, KFTL's CEO reportedly says any worker who participates in the, quote, orchestrated, end quote, action on the way at Jamaica's main port will have their salaries cut. Days after U.S. President Donald Trump took office on January 20, he ordered a global freeze on foreign aid for 90 days to allow for a review. The USAID has been investing in Jamaica for more than 60 years, supporting health, environment, education, and citizen security. Minister of Education, Youth, Skills and Information, Senator Dana Morris-Dixon, responded to questions regarding the impact that decision will have on Jamaica.
The National Security Council met last week Thursday, they met and they were looking at these matters. And so we've not been, ignorant of them. We've been looking at them. We've been assessing them. The Ministry of Foreign Affairs has been in constant dialogue with our U.S. partners, as they always have. And the minister will be giving further updates in very short order in relation to this. But please rest assured that up to the level of the National Security Council, we've been looking at these matters and developing positions in relation to our response to them. And you will definitely be the first to hear.
Minister Morris-Dixon was speaking at this week's post-cabinet press brief. She says the cabinet is aware of concerns around deportations as well. She told the media that Senator Kamina Johnson-Smith was down to address Wednesday's post-cabinet press brief, but had to attend a cabinet legislative committee meeting. Controversy is brewing over a school tour headlined by Grace Hamilton, the dancehall artist known as Spice. Sections of the church and the National Parent Teachers Association of Jamaica are blasting principals and school boards for approving her tour, arguing it promotes lewdness in schools. More in this report.
Dancehall Queen Spice has kicked off her school tour, visiting several high schools across Jamaica. However, backlash from the church has now paused the tour, leaving its future uncertain. Reverend Jeffrey Shuttleworth is among those condemning the initiative.
This is unacceptable if it is official, and it makes a mockery, absolute mockery, and runs amok of what we purportedly are trying to teach our children: decorum, decency, dignity, discipline. And if this really is so, I'm telling you, this is not going to be taken lightly, because you are fighting out devotion out of school, and yet you are allowing filth to go into schools.
Head of the National Parent Teachers Association of Jamaica, Stuart Jacobs, added his comments to the growing controversy, strongly condemning school officials for approving the tour.
We are now We are now inviting the load and slackness into our schools, and that's what it represents. It represents the fact that we have now opened the door to our educational institution, where this type of behavior is going to be accepted. So it's going to be difficult for parents to tell their children how to behave, best practice, social graces, and so on. It's going to be difficult to do it, because if you are at home telling your children not to listen to that loud music, not to listen to those type of people, but the school with a responsible educator who's a principal of a school is allowing this into their school, into the classroom, what are we to do? It is a sign of a hopeless society.
Reports are that on Wednesday, the dancehall artist met with Education Minister Dr. Dana Morris-Dixon with talks described as productive. She is set to meet with church representatives on Friday as debate continues over her controversial school tour.
Last night, I had the opportunity to meet with Grace Hamilton, who you know as Spice. And this was hosted and chaired by Minister Olivia Babsy-Grange. We had a productive discussion about her planned school tour and the concerns raised by various stakeholders, including members of the church and the wider society. We recognize the importance of engaging young people in meaningful ways, and we also acknowledge the powerful influence of public figures. It is essential that any initiative targeting students aligns with the values of our education system, discipline, and positive development.
Minister Morris-Dixon says more meetings on the matter featuring other stakeholders are set to take place. Reporting for the news on PBCJ, I am Denita Rodney.
The Heart Foundation of Jamaica has launched a cookbook just in time for Heart Month 2025, set to be recognized in February. Advocacy Officer at the HFJ, Rosanna Pike, says the book, titled Healthy Start to a Healthy Heart, contains 59 recipes,
which includes appetizers, main dishes, desserts, snacks, and even beverages. Quite frankly, it is more than just a recipe book. It is a guide to healthy eating and living.
People often complain about the cost of preparing healthy food, but she says the HFJ's cookbook has tips for that.
Now you tell me, where else can you find a book that provides you on tips on how to budget while still eating healthy, especially for a family of 4 for $2,000? How to substitute foods high in fat, salt, and sugar for healthier alternatives, how to make your meals balanced, and also guidelines from the Jamaican food-based dietary guidelines, and even how to make a white sauce for your favorite homemade mac and cheese.
Ms. Pike was speaking at the launch of Heart Month 2025 this week. Healthy Start to a Healthy Heart is available at the HFJ office at 28 Beechwood Avenue in Kingston. Denise Williams has more in the world of business in this Business Report.
Welcome to today's Business Report. I'm Denise Williams, here to bring you the stories shaping the financial world and guiding your journey to smarter business decisions. Let's dive into the top headlines. Investors can gear up for cash flow in the form of dividends from companies listed on the Jamaica Stock Exchange. Dollar Financial Services Limited has advised that the Board of Directors meeting scheduled for February 7, 2025 will consider an interim dividend payment to shareholders. Access Financial Services Limited has advised that the Board of Directors at a meeting scheduled for February 6, 2025 will consider a dividend payment to shareholders. Massey Holdings Limited has advised that the Board of Directors meeting scheduled for February 6, 2025 will consider an interim dividend payment to shareholders. The Bank of Jamaica announced that the government, faced with a $7.5 $1.29 billion shortfall in revenue and grants during the period April to November of this fiscal year will be floating a 273-day, 182-day, and a 91-day Treasury bill in order to raise some 2.1 billion Jamaican dollars under the competitive bidding to help fund the national budget. Applications for a minimum amount of 5,000 Jamaican dollars must be made through the Bank of Jamaica's Jam Clear Central Securities Depository between 9 a.m. and 10:45 a.m. on February 5, 2025. Grace Kennedy, owner of 70% of Spring Water Company Catherine's Peak, has reached an agreement with Spike Industries to acquire the remaining 30% stake in Catherine Peak Bottling Water Company, making it a wholly owned subsidiary of Grace Kennedy. Frank James, CEO of Grace Kennedy Foods Domestic and incoming Group CEO in February, described the acquisition as a strategic milestone that reinforces Grace Kennedy's commitment to owning leading Jamaican brands with global market appeal. This deal will make Grace Kennedy the dominant player in the local spring water market. For the trading period ending January 30, 2025, these were the most actively traded stocks. Caribbean financial conglomerate NCB Financial Group Limited with 9,023,372 units traded, representing 18.89% of market sales volume. Online Educator One-on-One Educational Services Limited with 6,286,576 units traded, representing 13.16% of market sales volume. Financial and Food Conglomerate Grace Kennedy Limited with 6,004,166 units traded, represented 12.57% of market sales volume. We now shift our focus to the Forex market rate set by the Bank of Jamaica. On January 30, 2025, Bank of Jamaica reported US $56.25 million purchased and US $66.50 million sold by Forex traders. Forex traders earned $1.08 per dollar, selling the US at $157.82 and buying the US at $156.74. The Canadian dollar netted Forex traders $1.86 per transaction, with selling at $110.11 and buying at $108.25. The British pound yielded Forex traders $4.91 in profits, with selling at $195.39 and buying at $190.48. For our credit report tip of the day, if your credit score is below 500 points, you may find that the only very high interest rate financial institutions will lend you money. As a self-employed professional, visiting your banker to discuss creditworthiness is a crucial step toward building financial stability. Here are some options. Prioritize credit repair. Correct inaccuracies on your credit report immediately. Then start a secured credit card and use it responsibly to build credit. And finally, monitor your progress. Regularly review your credit report for improvements. Now, when we're looking at building something from nothing, really that's nothing to financial resilience, overcoming burnout and building financial resilience and recovery as a professional woman over the age of 45 who seeks a slower pace of life with passive income involves thoughtful planning and action. It is important to combat burnout with financial security. Always reach out for advice if you need specific guidance. Here are the steps you can take. Downsize and simplify. Embrace a simpler lifestyle by cutting unnecessary expenses, creating space for peace and fulfillment. Then automate savings and investments. Set up an automatic contributions to retirement account or your brokerage account to grow your wealth effortlessly. And that wraps up today's Business Report. I'm Denise Williams, reminding you that every financial decision is a step toward your future. Until next time, stay focused, stay informed, and keep striving for success. See you soon.
In regional news, St. Lucia is making history with a groundbreaking legal case at the International Court of Justice, taking on the world's biggest polluters. The island nation is pushing to hold major emitters accountable for climate-related damages, setting the stage for a legal precedent that could force industrialized nations to meet their climate responsibilities.
St. Lucian lawyers are spearheading groundbreaking legal efforts at the International Court of Justice, ICJ, to hold major polluters accountable for climate damage, marking a significant shift in how small island nations combat the climate crisis.
If you recall, the tobacco industry did not make the changes in labeling and in warning labels where tobacco and nicotine was concerned until they started having to pay through their pockets with the class action lawsuits. I believe we have to get to the point where there is significant jurisprudence on our side.
The December 2024 hearing at The Hague featured compelling arguments from St. Lucian legal experts, including attorney Kate Wilson, who presented evidence of climate damage to small island developing states.
So I believe the court process as it is currently constituted needs to be reconfigured. It has to be recalibrated because you cannot tell me year after year developing countries go to conference of the parties and still end up with the short end of the stick, even while their countries are disappearing, their livelihoods are disappearing. So there has to be some sort of reconfiguration. There also has to be an increased focus, I believe, on litigation. As we saw in 2024 in December, when we had this case being taken up to The Hague by some very good lawyers from small island developing states. And I saw the submission from St. Lucia, and people like Jean-Yves Remy and Kate Wilson really did me proud by how they argued our case.
The legal strategy mirrors successful litigation against tobacco companies aiming to establish legal precedent for climate responsibility. Fletcher argues that this approach could force major industrial nations to address their climate obligations.
These countries, the countries that are polluting the atmosphere, the countries that are causing harm and destruction to small island developing states are legally responsible. They have a legal obligation to do something. And if they renege on that responsibility, then there is some penalty, a financial penalty, a steep financial penalty that attaches to it. Until that happens, until that signal starts coming out of the court system, they will continue to pollute the atmosphere with impunity. So that's why we have to pursue this on very many different fronts.
The case represents a strategic pivot for small island nations moving beyond traditional diplomatic channels to seek climate justice through international courts. Fletcher has been appointed CARICOM Climate Envoy with effect from January 1st, 2025 last week. Joachim de Plessis, HTS News Force.
Grenadian authorities are on high alert as they await official word from U.S. officials on the possible return of nationals. More details in this report.
With the U.S. ramping up its mass deportation policy, Caribbean nationals, including Grenadians, could be among those sent back to their home countries. While Grenadian officials have yet to receive any formal communication from the U.S. authorities regarding deportations, the Immigration and Passport Department of the Royal Grenada Police Force has protocols in place to ensure a smooth reintegration process for any returning deportees. Assistant Superintendent Elian Purcell, attached to the Immigration and Passport Department, explains.
So we'll get an official communique via, sometimes it comes via the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Home Affairs, or sometimes it comes directly to us by email. So we'll be allotted in advance prior to the arrival of the individual. There are some cases where they are not too sure about the identity of the individual, and they will ask us to verify the identity of the individual. And we will normally do that and send correspondence back to the consulate office.
The officer stated that in case of uncertainty, officers may need to verify an individual's nationality before they are repatriated. For those who have served prison time or committed offenses while in the U.S., the RGPF will be provided with details of their criminal history upon arrival.
So they will send the offenses that the person would have committed in the U.S. Time already served, so you cannot incarcerate the individual in Grenada again. So what we do, we would normally have the criminal investigation department come and interact with them at the airport, just for our internal records, so that if that person reoffend while they are on island, we'll be able to check our database to see if that person is culpable in any way at all.
However, Purcell clarified that the department is not responsible for notifying family members of deportees upon their return.
We are not in any way charged with the responsibility of informing family members, and we do not inform them. I do not know if the U.S. Home Affairs.
The Trump administration is ramping up deportations, sending undocumented immigrants back to their home countries. Belize's Prime Minister John Bresigno says his country is prepared to welcome returning Belizeans. But the big question remains, how will they reintegrate into society?
We do know that that is a policy decision of the new Trump administration, and so we do expect some deportees to be coming back, not necessarily violent offenders. I know my friend Jules Vasquez, again, in attacking the numbers, is saying, oh, all the criminals gonna say it's and they come home now, doom and gloom. Jules, you know better than I do. One criminal gone, 5 more grow up the next day. That's not how this works. Migration has happened since the 70s and 80s, continues to this day. And I know you need a reason to explain away the numbers, but Jules, this is a fact of life. And yes, we have to prepare ourselves for the deportation.
What preparations are we speaking of in terms of being able to perhaps deal with those who have a criminal past in the United States and are sent back home?
Well, we are going to deal, Isani, with whether they have a criminal past here in Belize or if they are pending charges. For instance, I believe Ellis Main is one of them. If there are others, then we will, if there is enough evidence, then those individuals will be charged. And so the police department obviously has a roster of these individuals that they will be keeping an eye on and, if necessary, charge upon their return.
In sports, we kick things off with football. Reggae Boyz are set to face off against Trinidad and Tobago in their 2-match home friendly international series on February 6 and February 9. The first match will be held at the Montego Bay Sports Complex. Head coach Steve McLaren says he's expecting a highly competitive contest. He has announced a 28-man local-based squad for both games. The full squad includes goalkeepers Shaquan Davis, Benjamin Williams, Joshua Grant, Jamali Waite. Defenders, Richard King, Fitzroy Cummings, Gadale Irving, Christopher Ainsworth, Robino Gordon, Kyle Ming, Stephen Young, Giovanni Lang, Sule McCullough, Malik Howell. For the midfielders, Jashawn Anglin, Demario Phillips, Romeo Guthrie, Dwayne Atkinson, Shamar Watson, Nathaniel Howe, and Daniel Green. For the forwards, we have Warner Brown, Kimani Arborn, Ronaldo Biggs, Shaniel Thomas, Raheem Edwards, Kimoni Bailey, and Jalmaro Calvin. In regional sports, the Trinidad and Tobago under-17 women's football team continued their perfect start in the CONCACAF World Cup qualifiers. The TNT ladies defeated Belize 2-0 in their second Group B match on Wednesday night at the Atto Boldon Stadium.
TNT opened the scoring thanks to a 30-minute goal by Woodbrook Secondary Sharina Steele to give the hosts a 1-0 lead going into halftime. It was a fast start to the second half for the national ladies, when national intercall winner Rory Gittins scored a long-range strike in the 49th minute. TNT's 2-0 victory sends them to the top of Group B via a better goal difference than second-placed Honduras on 6 points. A draw or victory for the national ladies against Honduras at the Atabolden Stadium this Friday will see TNT advance into the next round as Group B winners. Well, following their 2-0 victory against Belize, Trinidad and Tobago's under-17 women's head coach Ayanna Russell expressed satisfaction with her team's improved showing in their second match.
It's been a perfect start so far in the CONCACAF Under-17 Women's World Cup qualifiers for the Trinidad and Tobago national team, who successfully got past Belize 2-0 at the Atabolden Stadium. Head coach Ayanna Russell expressed her delight with the victory.
Yeah, I mean, it's always good to come out with the 3 points and not concede it. I think the girls fought from start to finish, so very, very confident going into the game against Honduras on Friday. There were some details that we gave to them in the final too that we didn't quite execute. We saw it in spurts, but the movement of the ball was much better. Midfield was a little bit tighter, and the organization also. So some of the things that we asked for, we got. So again, we just build on that and go to the next game.
Second half goal scorer Rory Gittins, who dedicated her goal to her family, said her team had to work harder physically in their final match to get a positive result.
This game was a lot more physical, and there was a lot of strong tackles that we had to put in to get the ball, and we had to win a lot of them in the air, the first balls, to keep possession. And I think that our team was working insanely hard to come out victorious, and I'm proud of them. I think the bonding on and off the field is wonderful. All the girls get along well, and we work together as one unit.
TNT defender Caitlin Darwin was proud of her team's defensive performance, keeping their second straight clean sheet.
Feel very good, very good. I think that we should have gotten a couple more goals in this game, but I'm very proud of coming out victorious in both games so far. It just goes to show how the back line is working, but the front line is also doing very good in defense as well, so we have to commend them.
Coach Russell is expecting a similar challenge against Honduras in TNT's final Group B match this Friday.
It's similar to Belize in terms of using the long balls, probably a little more physical and a little more organized. So I think it will be a similar situation today. And as I said, the little details that I can't really discuss in the final today, I think if we could get that right, we'll be all right.
Adrian Lazar, TTT Sport.
And that's it for the weekend news on PBCJ. I'm Simone Absalom Gale. Pleasant viewing.